When people hear the name Corey Taylor, they usually think of Slipknot. Over the last 25 years, he's become one of the most recognizable voices in modern metal. But before the masks, the sold-out arenas, and the success, his life looked very different. He grew up moving from place to place, struggled with drug addiction before he was even old enough to drive, and nearly lost his life more than once. At several points, music was the only thing keeping him focused. Corey Todd Taylor was born on December 8, 1973 in Des Moines, Iowa, but spent most of his childhood in Waterloo. He was raised by his mother, and because the family was constantly searching for work, they moved frequently. Taylor later said that by the age of 15, he had already lived in about 25 different states. That constant moving made it difficult to build friendships or feel at home anywhere. In interviews, Taylor has described himself as the class clown, someone who used humor to fit in, but every time he started getting comfortable, it was time to move again. The person who had the biggest impact on his childhood was his grandmother, Thelma. After years of instability, she became the one person who gave him a sense of normal life. Taylor has often called her his rock and said she was the strongest influence he ever had growing up. She also introduced him to music. Her house was full of Elvis Presley records, and Corey spent hours listening to them. In several interviews, he has said that Elvis was the first singer who made him pay attention to vocals rather than just the songs themselves. His taste became much heavier a few years later. One day, while visiting his grandmother, his uncle played Black Sabbath's album Paranoid. Taylor has recalled that hearing Tony Iommi's guitar for the first time completely changed the way he looked at music. From that point on, he started exploring bands like Black Sabbath, Judas Priest, Iron Maiden, and later Metallica, while still listening to punk, classic rock, and many other genres. Despite discovering music, his teenage years were far from easy. By the age of 15, Taylor had developed a serious drug addiction and later admitted that he overdosed on cocaine twice. After those incidents, he moved in with his grandmother permanently. She gained legal custody of him, encouraged him to stay in school, and even helped him buy his first musical equipment. Looking back, Taylor has said that moving into her house gave him a second chance. Around that time, music stopped being just an interest. It became something he wanted to dedicate his life to. In the late 1980s, while still a teenager, Taylor started performing in local bands around the Des Moines area. One of his earliest serious projects was a band called Stone Sour, formed in 1992 with guitarist Josh Rand and other musicians from Iowa's local scene. Stone Sour played local shows and built a following, but by the mid-1990s, the band was struggling to move forward. Around this time, another group from Des Moines was beginning to attract attention, Slipknot. In 1997, they was looking for a new vocalist. The band already had a unique sound and a chaotic live show, but they needed someone who could match the intensity of their music. Joey, Sean, Paul, and the other members approached Taylor after seeing him perform with Stone Sour. Not long after, he joined Slipknot as a vocalist. The band began working on what would become their self-titled debut album. Released in 1999, Slipknot introduced the world to 9 musicians wearing masks, wearing matching jumpsuits, and creating one of the most intense sounds in modern metal. The whole album are goated, and Taylor quickly became recognized as one of the most powerful vocalists of the new generation. For Corey, this was the beginning of a completely different life. The teenager from Iowa who once struggled with addiction and uncertainty was now standing on stages around the world. The success of Slipknot brought attention, money, and constant touring. For Taylor, it also meant spending years on the road while dealing with problems he had carried since his teenage years. In fact, some of his hardest years were still ahead. Then comes Iowa, the darkest album of Slipknot, and that was the lowest point in the lives of all the band members. They all were on the verge. They had a strong alcohol and drug addictions. While recording the vocals for the album closing song Iowa, which lasts over 15 minutes, Corey stripped to the waist, entered a dark room with candles, and physically harmed himself in order to achieve maximum raw emotion. While Slipknot continued growing, Taylor also returned to Stone Sour. The band's self-titled debut album was released in 2002, and it showed a different side of his songwriting. Unlike Slipknot's aggressive style, Stone Sour allowed him to focus more on melody and personal lyrics. In interviews, Taylor's been open about his struggles with addictions. During the early years of Slipknot's success, he was drinking heavily and using substances to deal with pressure, anxiety, and the emotional weight of his past. In November 2003, Corey nearly ended his life while standing on the edge of an 8th floor balcony in West Hollywood.
The last night I drank, I basically found myself hanging off the balcony of the hotel room at the old Hyatt house on Sunset Boulevard in West Hollywood, California. I was standing on the balcony, I was just about to fall, and a friend of mine actually grabbed me and pulled me back in. If he hadn't grabbed me, I'd be dead.
This harrowing incident served as a definitive turning point. Following an ultimatum from his wife to choose his family over alcoholism, Taylor committed to sobriety that very day and began the difficult process of rebuilding his mental health. Taylor's journey was not only about music. A major part of his story became learning how to live with the past that shaped him. In 2004, Slipknot released Volume 3, The Subliminal Verses, an album that showed a different side of the band. For Taylor, it was also an important moment because he was writing more personal lyrics and using more clean vocals than before. The same year, he married his longtime partner, Scarlett Stone. Their relationship became an important part of his recovery as Taylor was trying to leave behind the lifestyle that had followed him since his teenage years. Years of touring, different personalities, and exhaustion started creating tension between the members. After the touring cycle for All Hope Is Gone ended in 2009, Slipknot entered a period of uncertainty. Then, in 2010, the band suffered its biggest loss. Bassist Paul Gray, one of Slipknot's founding members and one of Taylor's closest friends in the group, died from an accidental overdose. His death affected Taylor deeply. In interviews, he has said that losing Gray was one of the hardest experiences of his life. For a while, it was unclear if Slipknot would continue. What we're seeing today is basically the ship of Theseus paradox. If every part of a ship is gradually replaced, is it still the same ship? Most of Slipknot's classic lineup is already gone. Of course, it's completely normal for musicians to step away after more than 20 years of touring and performing, but it also raises a bigger question. If nearly everyone who defines Slipknot is gone, is it time to bring the band itself to an end? Let me know what you think in the comments. And we are continuing. By the late 2000s, Corey Taylor had built a career far beyond Slipknot. He became a best-selling author, publishing books that combine personal stories with his views on music, addiction, and everyday life. He also featured on Korn's song A Different World and has performed with them several times. In 2020, he released his first solo album, giving himself the freedom to explore styles that didn't fit either Slipknot or Stone Sour. Outside of music, Taylor has appeared in several horror films and television projects, reflecting a lifelong passion for the genre. He has also become one of rock's most outspoken personalities, never shying away from difficult conversations about addiction, depression, or mental health. He cited Elvis, Metallica, Motley Crue, Slayer, Misfits, and Nine Inch Nails as his musical influences. Looking back, it's remarkable how different his life could have been. As a teenager, addiction nearly killed him. Years later, he stood on some of the world's biggest stages, wrote best-selling books, and became the voice of one of metal's most successful bands. More importantly, he never pretended that success erased his past. Instead, he chose to speak openly about it, hoping that someone else might learn from his mistakes.
It was very in the mood. And shut up! See what happened? See what happened?